passionate. It's doing conventions is not my job. I'm still an actor. Not so much acting these days. It's mostly production because I had a very bad heart attack 5 years ago. So nowadays I'm mostly doing production work, producing stage plays. But so I do conventions because I want to. And I've got this. I'm jumping ahead of myself here, but I have a thread online. It's on Rebel Scum. Do you all know Rebel Scum? Okay, for those of you who don't, it's a fan collectors website. Collectors of every kind, people who collect toys, books, autographs, photographs, everything. And I'm passionate about history and accuracy of the creatures in Jabba's palace. Because there are a lot of people, believe it or not, there are some people signing photographs they're not in and taking money for it. So the fans who know I'm passionate about this history, they asked me to start this thread. So on this thread, it's ROTJ history, Return of the Jedi history, Gerald Home's creature info. You can take a picture of this later and get the direct link. And I write about all sorts of stuff, what it's like acting in a mask. Most of my acting is not in a mask, so I talk about other acting as well. I talk about conventions I go to, all kinds of things, so you should read that. And I guarantee you will find information there you've never seen anywhere else. And I guarantee if you look at my photograph album, you'll see photographs you've never seen anywhere else online. They're my personal photographs, and it's my personal information. So look at that, please. Did I answer your question? Yeah? Okay.
Don't worry, I have lots of them.
Okay.
Okay, for the people coming in now, it's not like we don't have chairs and we're not sitting on stage. We decided to do this thing
Because I want to be close to you.
Yeah, there you go. When you were cast in Return of the Jedi, did you know it was going to be such a big hit, such an influence on your life?
No. I knew it was going to be a big hit because it was the third one. You know, number one, episode 4 was a big hit all over the world. Episode 5 was a big hit. So we knew episode 6 was going to be a big hit. But we thought it was just another job. You were very aware, you know, when you're standing this close to Harrison Ford, you know you're in a Star Wars film. so it's very exciting, and you know you're part of history. But at the same time, you have to do the work. Do you know what I mean? You have to concentrate. You can't think, oh look, there's Carrie Fisher. You have to think, what do I have to do next? Concentrate. You know? So it's a mixture of excitement and hard work. But then what some of you younger people might not know, after Return of the Jedi, and it was a big success, and there were action figures for like 2 years. But around about 1986, it died away. There was no interest in Star Wars until, do you know why it became famous again? Because of an author called Timothy Zahn, a fan of Timothy Zahn.
Whoa, she knows.
There
we go.
And you can tell us, what was his book called?
Okay. I just want to listen to this.
Hi, Timothy Zahn wrote a book called Heir to the Empire.
Heir to the Empire.
Of the Throne trilogy. If you haven't read it and you're interested in Star Wars Extended Universe, start with that. The problem is, after Timothy Zahn, you won't want to read any other Star Wars Extended Universe. So he wrote the trilogy, which brings a few new villains like Thrawn, and a few new nice guys like Mara Jade, and the rest, as you will say, is history.
Fantastic. Well done. Thank you very much.
A round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. A round of applause for dedication.
So that was why Star Wars became popular again. So for like 20 years after Star Wars, I didn't mention it. Nobody asked me about it. If I was at an audition, a director never talked about Star Wars, never mentioned it. It was nothing. It was not big news until about 15 years ago, when people started tracking me down because of the internet. They tracked me down through my agent, my acting agent. And fans started saying, would you sign a photograph for me? And I said, but I don't have any photographs. And they said, well, we can tell you who to write to at Lucasfilm to get photographs. His name was Steve Sansweet. Do you know Steve Sansweet? He used to be the fan relations director at Lucasfilm. And if you don't know his collection, he's the biggest collector in the world. He has an exhibition in California, Rancho Obi-Wan.
Rancho Obi-Wan.
Okay, and
of course he does.
have a look at that. That's so he gave me officially licensed images of my characters, and then they said, "Would you like to come to a convention?" And I said, "What's a convention?" And they told me, and here we are 15 years later, and I've been to 100 all over the world. So it very gradually changed my life, to answer your question. My first year I did 3 conventions. My second year I did 23. And my agent said, listen, you're going to have to come to a decision. Are you a convention person or are you still an actor? So I decided to do maybe 6 a year, 2 in Britain, 2 in Europe, 2 in America or elsewhere. And that's basically what I've stuck to until this year when it's taken off. I think because of the 40th anniversary. Yep. And next year, because of the 35th anniversary of Jedi, Return of the Jedi, I'm going all over the world again next year. Well, he got what he wanted, he died. Well, that's what he wanted. Okay.
Well, sorry, spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert, yes. A lot of people have asked me today what they were like, the big 3, on Return of the Jedi. And I'll tell you that Mark Hamill, he was like an eager young puppy dog. And it was like, gee, that's cool. Is that rubber? Is that latex? Can I try it on? And what's that made of? Yeah, he was really inquisitive. He wanted to know everything. Carrie Fisher, also very, very young. I'm not giving away secrets when I tell you at that time she had problems. And during Jedi, Return of the Jedi, she was anorexic. She was very, very, very thin. And she was like, you know, she talked about this when she was alive, you know, that she had problems with drugs and things. But she wasn't a diva. A lot of actresses, when they're not filming, they want their dresser to put their dressing gown on and they want to go to their caravan. She wasn't. She sat there in front of Jabba all the time.
Yeah,
so she was very down to earth.
That scene took what? I mean, it took a long time.
4 weeks.
4 weeks?
4 weeks.
There you go.
3.5 to 4 weeks.
It took a month.
Not just Jabba's palace, but also the sail barge.
Oh, yeah, all right.
So all the Jabba's stuff about 3.5 weeks, and the Mon Calamari stuff about 1 week. I should tell you, I should start at the beginning in case you don't know. I played 2 characters. Tessek, Squidhead, was my main one. Accountant to Jabba the Hutt in the expanded universe. And the Mon Calamari officer, right? Some of us, you might not know how I'm credited, where I am in the credits. A lot of people say, why are you not in the credits? But I am in the credits. Right at the very end, after Ewoks, there's a group of mime artists, okay? There are 9 of us, mime artists. Why mime artists? It's because mime is just acting without words. So they had all these costumes which Phil Tippett, Oscar winner Phil Tippett, took a year designing.
He's the guy who worked in Jurassic Park, right?
Yes.
Yeah, he think he's credited as caretaker of dinosaurs, and there was a meme going around, Phil Tippett, you had 1 job.
He's a genius. He's very, very clever. So he designed everything in Jedi except Jabba. But when we came to film, he took care of Jabba. That was part of his brief, to take care of Jabba. What was I going to tell you about Phil Tippett? Yes, they spent a year making these costumes. So they didn't want, if you put an extra, I talk about this on my thread, and I've got to be very careful because if I say things about extras as opposed to actors, some extras think I'm being unkind. You know what an extra is, yes? Okay, but you can tell in Star Wars there were a lot of extras inside the costumes. Now, if you put an extra inside a costume and ask him to move, it'll be like this. But if you put a performer, whether it's an actor like me, a mime artist, or a dancer, or a juggler, performer of any kind, inside a costume and say action, they'll go like this.
Acting 101, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, that was very basic.
There you go, there you go.
Thank you. But that was very basic, but you know what I mean. Now, I'm not saying extras are untalented. I don't mean that at all. I'm not being unkind. I'm saying they're not actors. So a lot of people write to me in this, and they say, who's inside that costume? And I tell them, and they say, but we can't find that person. And I say, that's because you're looking for them in the actors' agencies. They weren't actors, they were extras. So you've got to look for them in the extras agencies. And that's how they track down people inside the costumes.
Oh, okay. Right, I'm gonna just steer a bit away from Star Wars. Don't kill me, okay? Because I have a couple more questions that are not Star Wars related, because I'm curious and I don't care about you, so. You did puppeteering.
Yes.
Puppeteering for Audrey 2,
Yes.
Little Shop of Horrors.
Yes.
I love that musical.
Fantastic.
I was so excited when I saw it. If you haven't seen it, Little Shop of Horrors, it's a musical about a man-eating plant who is taking over the world. And it's a musical. I shit you not. It's absolutely fantastic. They made a movie out of it. The guy who plays in Ghostbusters...
Rick Moranis.
Rick Moranis plays the protagonist. It's absolutely fantastic, and the music is great. And you played the plant.
I was the flesh-eating plant.
Flesh-eating plant,
It wasn't
yeah.
discriminatory. It had men and women.
Sorry. We eat all genders. We eat all genders.
I've got photographs somewhere. But if you remember, in the final scene, there's a big song, "Mean Green Mother from Outer Space," with little singing pods. So
I know it.
you know it. Well, you must come and see my photographs.
I'm not going to sing because there's people. I mean, it's not nice for them to sing.
Okay. Like me, you learned how to do puppetry because you did children's theatre or something. And a lot of those guys who were very good actors, they stayed being puppeteers. And then they went on to work for Jim Henson, and then they won Oscars for puppeteering.
Have you worked with
Jim Henson? Yes,
Yeah,
lots.
have you?
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
I saw a video and it's really hard. I mean, it's a genuine art form.
Yes. Well, A Little Shop of Horrors, the puppeteers, that was Henson.
Yeah.
That was Henson's Creature Shop.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So yeah, but if you're an actor, my first job was with a children's theatre company called Polka Children's Theatre, and they taught me how to do puppeteering. It could be rod puppets, marionettes, glove puppets, and also mime inside creatures like polar bears or genies. So you had to learn to act without words. I'm getting back to your other question.
No, it's okay. You can go on. I'm okay.
The reason why we got the job as 9 mime artists was because we knew how to act without words. But towards the end, when we were filming the Battle of Endor,
Back to Star Wars.
back to Star Wars. I go all over the place, you've got to be careful. Irish brain. Very often when filmmakers make films, they make a rough edit. You understand? A rough edit to see if the film is making sense. And when they did a rough edit of the Battle of Endor, it didn't make sense. We say there was a hole. There was a hole in the plot. It didn't make sense. So very quickly they wrote 2 pages of additional dialogue that I had with Tim Rose. And this dialogue was to fill the hole so the Battle of Endor made sense. It didn't work because my mouth wasn't used for articulation. So they didn't use it. But again, you can download the script, those 2 pages of dialogue, and the call sheets that refer to that. A call sheet is something that tells you everything that's going to happen on a film the next day. You can download that from Rebel Scum, my thread.
Okay, I have another question for a different project. Did I read that right? Did you work on a play of a Sherlock Holmes play written by Philip Pullman?
Yes.
I have no idea he wrote the Sherlock Holmes.
He did.
play.
I think he wrote 6. I think. You know Philip Pullman?
Okay, Philip Pullman. For those who doesn't know.
What you over there?
She can tell us who is Philip Pullman. Oh, you have to. Oh, you have to. This is Alex Norman, everyone.
Hi, okay, all I can tell you about Philip Pullman is he's one of my favorite authors. He wrote some amazing trilogies.
Okay, sorry. He wrote the trilogy, his Dark Materials. You might have seen the movie The Golden Compass, which it was shit. By the way, it was absolutely horrible.
He agrees. Philip agrees.
Yeah, but his books are absolutely fantastic. I cannot stress it enough. So you can check it out.
Philip is writers are very peculiar people, like puppeteers are very peculiar people. They're like nobody else. Dancers are always like nobody else on earth. I've just thought of 3 different things to tell you all at once. Do you know who a Manaman is in Jabba's palace? One of us 9 mime artists played a creature called a Manaman. You know a Manaman? No? Like a stick insect. Come to my table, I'll show you a photograph. Well, the person inside that costume was called Ailsa Burke, a lady. And her job now is to choreograph Doctor Who. Doctor Who fans? Anybody? Oh my goodness, oh my goodness.
What do you think about the new Doctor Who?
Okay. Every episode. Okay, well, do you remember Christopher Eccleston? He was the first Doctor of the new era of Doctor Who. He was my favorite. Now, when they made that, they decided they were going to have a group of people to play the creatures. And the usual thing is to get 2 tall men, 2 small men, 2 tall women, and 2 small women. Have I got feedback?
I think maybe if we move, maybe if we move a bit. Right. Okay, I think they're gonna sort it out.
Okay.
Apologies. We apologize.
Okay, so that's the usual team. The companies have to play all the creatures. And I'm quite tall, 6 foot, 183. So I was going to be the tall man, right? And like on Return of the Jedi, we were credited as performers. So we had performers' contracts. I shouldn't be telling you this, but I'm very indiscreet, which meant that you got repeat fees, residuals, for years afterwards. Every time the program was repeated, you got a fee. So I was going to do that. I was going to be the tall man in the new Doctor Who. But the BBC decided they weren't going to have actors inside, so they used extras instead.
So they wouldn't have to pay them a residual?
Absolutely. No performance contracts, no repeats.
Studio executives. We hate them.
And I'm a great union man. You know, I believe in the unions. And I said, no, I wouldn't do it. Okay. What a lot of people don't know
is that a script?
Is that it's my copy of my script. George Lucas directed the Battle of Endor scenes. You know the big battle at the end with the screens behind us Moncals? He was the only person who knew what was going to be in those screens, the battle. So he directed them, even though he didn't direct the film. He directed the Battle of Endor. And a lot of people don't believe me, but I have proof. I have proof, which you can see again on my thread. Just about everything I'm saying here, you can see on my thread. So that's a little thing that not many people know.
What are your current projects now? What are you working on?
Well, because does anybody know children's TV? Well, it was a book, then a TV show, Charlie and Lola. Yes, you could. And is it, no, behind you.
There you go.
Excellent. And do you see it on Cyprus TV? Or do you see it on the internet? In some countries they call it a different name, like in Spain it's Juan y Lola, not Charlie and Lola. Okay, it was a book. Charlie and Lola are like cartoon characters. And it's like, Charlie, you're my big brother, I love you so much. Oh, don't talk to me like that, Lola, I'm a boy, I don't talk about mushy stuff. Do you understand? It's for toddlers, it's for tiny, tiny children. Well, the BBC commissioned a cartoon program of Charlie and Lola. And then they commissioned a play for the theatre for Charlie and Lola, and I was involved with that on the production side. And taking over that, from that is another play called Sarah and Duck. Anybody know Sarah and Duck? In America, they watched it on Netflix. Again, it's like two-dimensional puppets, right? And you've got the puppeteers on stage, visible, acting with the puppets. The puppeteers aren't hiding. They're going, they talk to the puppets, right? So again, that's actors. Sometimes they have to learn puppeteering. But because of my heart attack, I don't do much acting these days. So I'm on the producing side.
All right, with your permission, I would like to open the floor to questions,
Okay.
starting with you.
Hi, my name is Omiros. I heard a rumor that you auditioned for Game of Thrones. Could you tell us about that?
I wonder where you heard that rumor. Okay. Yes, I did. The casting director on Game of Thrones then was a lady called Nina Gold. And if you want to Google Nina Gold, IMDb, she has cast little things like The Force Awakens. She's big. I got a couple of films through her, little bits in a film with Colin Farrell, a film called London Boulevard. And do you know Hideo Nakata, Japanese director? His big film was The Ring,
Well,
Ringu.
that we know.
I did his first ever English language film through Nina Gold.
Wow.
And she got me an audition for Game of Thrones.
Which character?
Uh,
Whoa. Let me guess. Varys.
I don't know who that is. I didn't watch it because I didn't get it. No, it was for a street preacher,
Oh.
a manic street preacher.
Oh.
You know, he was talking. There's no children here, is there? There was lots of, the royal family fucking, lots of rude words and crotch grabbing. I loved it. So they sent me a script to learn. I learnt it. I auditioned, and it was for the street preacher, who they thought might be in the whole series, right? If they liked the character, maybe the character was going to be in the whole series. So, I mean, this was like 5 years ago, and I think it was probably the best audition I've ever done in my life. All the production people, the casting people, I can still see their faces watching me. And I'm not boasting.
No,
I don't boast, but at the end of the audition, they applauded. And the guy, this is filmed like you, the guy at the back there. The guy who films auditions, he's just left, or she, they've just left film school. They don't want to be doing this. They want to be working with Spielberg. You know, they don't want to be here filming these actors. He applauded, and he came over to shake my hand, which has never happened in 35 years. And of course, I didn't get it.
That's so sad. Why?
I should have known, because if you get it, they usually say, "Okay, thank you, bye," and you get that one. I don't know. I didn't find out. I'm glad, because that's when I had my heart attack.
Oh.
And if I'd got it, I wouldn't have been able to do it. So, but you find out years later, for example, like 10 years ago, I was penciled in, that means you're going to get this job unless the atomic bomb goes off, for a commercial for a defibrillator.
Defibrillator, yeah.
Philips knew. And it was going to be shown all over the world for 1 month £20,000 one fee, no repeats, 20,000, which is what, 30,000 euros, 25?
Somewhere around there.
So I was penciled in for that. Didn't get it. Didn't do it. But years later, I found out they gave it to an actress. They decided they wanted to use a woman instead of a man because of when it was shown in the Muslim countries. Right? They wanted a woman, which doesn't make sense to me, because to show a defibrillator, you have to show the chest.
Yeah.
You know? But they wanted to show a woman's chest. And, you know, so you never know. So to answer the question, I don't know why I didn't get the part, and I don't want to know why. So I don't know if you find that interesting, but
Speaking about commercials.
this is the behind-the-scenes life of an actor.
Speaking about commercials, when I did the research, I mean, one guy called me and he said, "Hey, you're doing the Q&A with the Mr. Muscle guy." And I'm like, "The who guy?" "The Mr. Muscle guy." And I'm like, "What?" And I went and watched the advert on YouTube. I'm like, "Dude, that's the guy."
Did you really?
Yeah, I saw it when I was a kid. I was like, "That's the guy. That's the Mr. Muscle guy."
Well, I was the original Mr. Muscle. Nowadays, he's a CGI Mr. Muscle with an American accent and with muscles. The whole point of Mr. Muscle was you didn't need muscles to use Mr. Muscle. The problem was at the time I had huge muscles because I was doing a lot of puppetry. So I had huge muscles. So when you watch these commercials, look at YouTube, Gerald Home, the original Mr. Muscle, in my little boxer shorts with everything tucked away. They told me, Gerald, please, Mr. Muscle doesn't have any bulges. I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "Tuck it away." I hope you're not offended by that. Nobody embarrassed by that. But
If you don't got that, you are too young.
so that's Mr. Muscle. You can see that on YouTube. What a lot of people, these commercials were on in Britain, Australia, New Zealand, South Africa, Russia, Bulgaria. There was somebody else I was going to say.
I think I saw it in the UK when I was a kid. I clearly.
You're the exact age, the right age. I was also, in England, you've got page 3 girls, which are rude pictures of girls. But you also had a page 7 fella. And I was a page 7 fella.
Feast your eyes, ladies.
Feast your eyes on that. Or men, let's not be discriminatory.
Yeah, or men.
Now,
Again,
if you want
we
to,
don't mind genders.
This was from 1989, right? If you want to read what it says about...
Oh, I'm definitely reading
There we
what
are,
it says.
the last bit.
There you go. When he's not flexing his weenie biceps, he's busy rehearsing. He played Squidhead in Return of the Jedi, the Plant in the movie Little Shop of Horrors, and the Delivery Man in No Sex Please, We Are British.
Well done, thank you very much. So, again, you can see that on my thread, on my website, if you click onto the little thumbnails. Another thing I want to show you, there's a brilliant guy in America called Bill Cable. If you want any sketches of your Game of Thrones characters or Star Wars characters, look at his website. It's called creaturecantina.com. Creature Cantina, do you know it? Creature Cantina. Wow. And he did this wonderful, wonderful cartoon which mixes Squidhead with Mr. Muscle.
Oh, it's Mr. Muscle. There you go.
But it's Mr. Muscle and Squidhead.
Oh.
So you can see that on my website. It's very clever. Again, on my website, you'll see a photograph of my mask in an exhibition in Brazil a few years ago. And beside me is a man, right? And you'll see that beside the man, the mask is twice the size. So that gives you an idea of how heavy it was. So the Squidhead mask, the Tessec mask, I had to be strapped into it. You know, which is very claustrophobic. You have to really concentrate. Don't faint. Concentrate. The Mon Calamari mask was easier. That was straight on, straight off. But the Squidhead mask, you see, what you guys don't realize, when you look at Jabba's palace, the set is tiny, 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 tiny. Like maybe this, not much bigger than this stage.
Wow.
It's very tiny. And at one stage, I think there were 190 people on it. And you had lights, smoke, extras, carpenters, makeup people, electricians, you know? It was very, very hot. So it was a big It was a big strain not to faint, really, or to pass out through lack of air. You had to concentrate. But, you know, that was my job. That's what I was being paid for. We were paid very well. But it was, yeah, it was hot.
Any,
Well, they were very good. Mostly it was they would do one take and then I remember the first scene we filmed was Princess Leia's entrance. And I think I rushed up to see Princess Leia entering. But because I can't see without my glasses, I don't know about you and you, I can't see, everything is a blur. I kept my glasses on under the mask. Big mistake. Because what happened? Missed.
no, okay. In my opinion, CGI is not that good for the longevity of a movie. I mean, seriously, you see Jurassic Park today, or you see Star Wars, and because there are puppeteers inside and they use animatronics, I mean, you look at it today and you're like, oh, okay, I mean, it can work. Whereas you look at movies shot like 3 years ago, and the graphics are like, whoa, this is not real. I mean, what do you think about it?
Well, one of the reasons, I'm not a Star Wars fan the way you guys are, but I am a fan of Episode 4. It's one of my top 10 films ever. I love it. Every time it's on TV, I still watch it. And because I love the characters, I mean, I've stood this close to Harrison Ford, I've stood this close to Carrie Fisher, but when I watch that film, I forget that. And I want them to get together, and I want them to win, and I want the light side to win, you know? Because it's rough, because it's not too smooth, because it's not CGI perfect. You know, it's real. You know, if a film can be real, I think Episode 4 is real. Do you know, maybe you shouldn't record this bit, or if you record it, cut it out, but promise me. Kate Bush, does anybody know Kate Bush? Do you know Kate Bush, the English singer? If you don't, you should be ashamed of yourself. Go home and talk to your parents.
I don't know why he singled you out, but you know, you're gonna pay for everyone.
He's English.
Oh, you should know.
Ish. Okay, Kate Bush is a genius English singer. Wuthering Heights, maybe you know Wuthering Heights from, I knew you would know. But
she knows everything, I can see.
About 12 years ago, she made a record called Ariel. Was it called Ariel? She doesn't make many records. And she had one song called King of the Mountain. King, you know who the king was in showbiz? Who was the king?
Well, first.
Elvis.
Oh.
Elvis, the king.
Okay.
So this song was about Elvis Presley. And she had this idea for the video, which she was going to direct. She was going to have Elvis's white costume. Do you remember when he was old and fat and he had a white in Las Vegas? And he had this white outfit, yeah? And sometimes this white outfit was going to be like washing, hanging on a washing line. Sometimes it was going to be like a baby that she was cradling. Sometimes it was going to be like a bird flying through the wind, right? So her record company said, okay, cool, we can do that in the computer, 10 minutes. And she said, no, I want puppeteers, green screen. I mean, nowadays it's green screen. During filming Jedi, it was blue screen, you know, the background. Puppeteers, so you want to see the puppeteers. And they said, well, what's the point? If you don't see the puppeteers, we're going to have auditions. We have to contact agents, line up auditions, pay them money. We can do it in 10 minutes on the computer. What's the point if they're not going to be in the video? And she said, well, they won't be in the video, but their human warmth will be.
There you go. There you go.
I can see you get it. You get it. And I thought, I wish she would talk. And I mean, it was my company. I told you about this children's theatre company I work. She used puppeteers from that company for this video. See if you can find it on YouTube, King of the Mountain. And I thought, if only people who use too much CGI would listen to her.
heavy CGI movies, I mean, they might be cheap to shoot, but they don't live long.
Well, also, I mean, when I watch A New Hope, I'm like this. I look forward, I care, I want to know what happens next. But CGI, I sit back and I switch off. And I might think that's fantastic. Yes, brilliant technology, but I don't care. I'm not involved in this film. So I think CGI, it's very good. Sometimes it's very useful, but if it's done too much, it's cold. There's no warmth, and you don't get involved.
Well, if you want any more arguments against CGI, Jar Jar Binks was CGI, so, you know, and everyone hates Jar Jar Binks. Oh!
I didn't say that.
Oh!
Okay, but let me differentiate Jar Jar Binks from Ahmed Best, the actor who did the voice.
Oh, all right.
Brilliant. So Jar Jar Binks, brilliant performance.
All right, okay.
There are some companies I regret working with. There's some actors I regret working with. There's some directors I regret working with. But, you know, when you look back over a life, you're very young. When you look back over your life, there are very few regrets. Directors and casting directors see me in one of two ways. Comedy, Mr. Muscle. Because of my face, I can look a bit of an idiot, you know. When you see the commercials, you'll see why. That comes very easily to me, being an idiot.
Yeah, well, me too, so.
But also, I do a lot of heavy stuff, very, very serious, intense acting. And that's also part of me. I have both qualities. I can be very intense, very concentrated, but I can also be very comedic. So I think one of my favorite roles was Dickens' Christmas Carol. You know Christmas Carol? Charles Dickens? What do you call it? Christmas Carol?
No, we call it Christmas Carol. That's the one with Ebenezer Scrooge.
Ebenezer Scrooge. And Tiny Tim, the little boy.
Tiny Tim.
And Bob Cratchit, who works for Scrooge.
If we take it today, Ebenezer Scrooge would be a hedge fund manager.
Yes, yes. I think he wasn't he, with Bill Murray?
I think
that
he was
film?
a moneylender or something. Anyway.
Okay, now this was a company of 4 people, and we toured theatres. It was my favorite job because I played 11 characters. And it was a question of I would play the ghost of Christmas Present, dash off stage, put on a different hat, come on as a different character. Different shape, different accent, different look. Then I'd go off stage and I'd be Bob Cratchit. Then I'd come back on and I'd be a baker, a big fat baker. You understand, it was a gift for an actor to play lots of different parts. So that was my favorite job ever. No regrets whatsoever. I love Mr. Muscle. I love Mr. Muscle. He bought me a house in Wimbledon. He bought me a house in Wimbledon.
If he bought me a house, I would love him too.
Yes. A little diversion, a little anecdote. One of the actresses in A Christmas Carol with me, remember there are 4, 2 actors, 2 actresses. She was a tiny little thing called Jenny, and she played all the boys. She played Tiny Tim, because she was very thin and she looked like a boy. Some years later, when she was married and pregnant, having a rough time with her pregnancy, you understand? And she had to stay in bed for many, many months because she had no hips. You know, she was having trouble. And she wrote what's called a treatment for the BBC, for a children's TV program. And she sent this to the BBC. They said, we like it, and they bought it. It was called The Tweenies. I don't know if you know The Tweenies. It's a bit like the Teletubbies. You know The Tweenies, yeah. Well, she wrote it, she produced it, she directed it. She kept 95% of the merchandising rights. And it did arena tours. You could buy CDs, DVDs, curtains, bedspread with the Tweenies. The Tweenies were actors inside masked costumes, a purple one, a blue one, like Teletubbies. Now, because she was auditioning so many actors to be in her productions, she thought, I'll start an agency for people inside mask costumes. So her agency was called Second Skin. And she had a lot of success with this. And she eventually had an acting department, a writing department, a puppeteers department, animatronics department, plus acting and, yeah, everything. And she went on to cast a lot of Doctor Who, The Force Awakens, a lot of her people. Also, she had a helper who set up her own agency, and she had 8 performers in The Force Awakens.
Okay, guys, we have 10 minutes. If there are any more questions? Any more questions, anyone? Or we can let Mr. Home, or as he likes to call himself, Gerald.
Gerald, I want to tell you one more thing. If you haven't seen my website, you don't know about Obi-Wan Kenobi Street. You know about it? Well done. It's a street in Poland which is officially named Obi-Wan Kenobi Street. And you'll see this on my website. And I was the first actor to go there in a convention. Everybody's been there since. Dave Prowse, Darth Vader, everybody's been.
I love the face you make. Fists of fun, like, hey!
Proud. Okay, one more question.
One more, I don't believe you don't have a question. I think you have a question within you. Yeah, I do. There you go. I knew it.
I'm one of the rather older people in the audience who actually grew up with Star Wars. So how does it feel for you to know that you are part of our childhood?
How does it feel for me to know?
That you are a part of our childhood, that us of a certain age who saw Return of the Jedi when it first came out, that we grew up with you and your fellow characters.
Thank you. Nice question.
See,
I'll give you an example. Again, you can see a photograph of this on my website. When I was at Celebration 4 in Los Angeles, there was this guy came up to my table. He was like a biker, you know, tattoos from here to here to here to here, long hair, piercings. And he came up. If you saw this guy in the street, you would cross the street, right? Because you don't want to be mugged. His name is Chris, I think I'm saying it right, Ivanchuk. He was a tattoo artist from Canada. And he put this picture he drew on my table. And you'll see this on my website. It was a picture of squid head and a tooth. You know, a tooth. And I said, you're going to have to explain this to me. And he said, well, when I was a child, I cried every time I went to the dentist, except when I held your action figure.
wow.
Yeah, I get choked up.
Well, I still cry when I go to the dentist. So
Well, there you go.
maybe I use
Clutch
that
me, clutch me. Clutch, no, not me, mini-me. Get a mini-me. Clutch
Can you
a mini-me.
imagine going into the dentist office with you, like, I have to touch him?
Shall I tell you my dentist has mini-me's now? When I go to my dentist, he has mini-me's. But yeah, that's when I realized exactly what we meant to people. That it wasn't how much time you're on screen. Much of my best stuff was cut, by the way, from Jedi. It's got to do with memories, and it's one reason why a lot of people in Britain like Mr. Muscle, because the Mr. Muscle commercials used to be shown around children's TV times. So people
That's
your
why I
age know your age. That's why they know it, because that's, and you can tell in a person's face, it means more to them than just a commercial or a film or an action figure. It's actually part of them. Yeah? Have I explained that right? Yeah? So it's very, since the heart attack, I mean, I cry very easily. And if people tell me things like that now, I can very easily get choked up. A lot of people who nearly die say that. They do.
That's such a nice story.
But it's, yeah. And I've had many people say that. I didn't know I had slept under so many people's pillows. But evidently I have slept under lots of people's pillows.
Ooh, we have a little one with a question
A
there.
Padawan.
What made you want to do Star Wars?
Well, at the time, it wasn't a choice. When I was at drama school studying mime, you learn speech and how to move and how to dance and how to speak. but you also learn mime, so you can act without words. One of the teachers was a man called Desmond Jones. So that was in 1977. 5 years later, I kept in touch with him over the years. He rang me, said he was putting together a group of people for a film. He couldn't tell me what film. Would I like to audition? No lines, so I'd be credited as a mime artist. And I said, sure. So I auditioned. I think they auditioned about 100 people at first, and then narrowed it down to 9. And I think it was the second audition, they told us it was for the new Star Wars film, which was called, who can tell me what the title was? Revenge of the Jedi. Revenge. Not Return of the Jedi, Revenge of the Jedi. But they changed the title because revenge is not a Jedi concept.
There you go.
Yeah, I think that answers your question. So it wasn't a choice. It was something that came to me.